Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's short Tea Time with Torlock. So, Capcom this week announced that they were making next gen patches for two of my favorite games of the Xbox One generation. And if you guessed that it was Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 2, you're right. They're also doing Resident Evil 3, but that's like the redheaded stepchild because of weird design choice that I want to go into one day, probably when the patch comes out, when it's relevant again and people will want to watch something on my crackpot theory about what happened to Resident Evil 3. So, let's talk. What could you make better about Resident Evil 2, 3, and 7? 2 is the one that I think has the biggest blemish on it, and I will get into it in just a moment. I just want to say that the Series S is going to be. I always feel bad saying that the Xbox One is an anemic console because it's kind of not. Like, I've used it, I've played it, I have one, and you'd be surprised how some games hold up, including the latest and greatest From Software title. Yes, it runs at like an unlocked 30-ish FPS. Yes, it's got weird frame pacing issues, but it is definitely playable on the Xbox One S. Not my ideal way to play it, but definitely playable. The Xbox Series X version is good, but could use a little more optimization. However, the Xbox One version of these is not bad. It's not bad. I think Resident Evil 7 kind of suffers the worst because it's first person and because it's kind of up close and personal. It's not a bad game. I don't want you to say that it's. I don't want to be like it's a bad game because it's not. It's not a bad version of the game at all. It's playable. If it's the only way you can play it, it's better than not playing it at all. But that Series S version, we're gonna go from this 1 teraflop GPU to this 4 teraflop GPU, which, to be honest, is not a great way to measure console performance to begin with, because the Xbox One has excuse me, has DDR3, whereas the PS4 and even the Xbox One X use GDDR RAM instead of just regular plain old DDR3, which is much faster, but has not as good latency in some things, so it's not ideal. It will be very interesting to see, because for me, the Xbox One X version of all of these is already a great experience on Xbox. I don't have a PS5 to test and a PS5 version of these games to tell you if the experience is good there too, but I would assume it's pretty decent. They ran it at higher resolution on the One X, and I can tell that playing the Series X. If they're using dynamic resolution scaling, it definitely looks like to me that they're running much closer to the higher bounds, probably always, on these games. So I just want to get into Resident Evil 2 here. This is not a spoilery thing. I'm not going to play a lot of the game. I just want to show off this graphical anomaly I'm not 100% sure what it is, but let's go. So, as you can see, this game looks good. Looks really good. We got a slightly dirty, and he won't look at the camera because he's a good boy, I guess. Leon. Now, for the most part, this looks really good, and that's fine. That's what we want. But my problem comes with metallic objects in the world, I think, that have a metallic object. So I'm gonna back up a bit, and you can see the floor. It kind of moving and rippling, kind of like it was water or something. I think there's like a dripping. Yeah, there's something dripping that pipe up there, but the floor is not supposed to be like super wet or like pooling water. Now, the other thing that this weird shadowing effect does is it causes ghosting on Leon here. So if you look at the tip of his gun, while I turn, you see that the image kind of ghosts a bit. You see it, maybe you see it better on his fingers, how it's like a temporal, that's usually a temporal anti-aliasing artifact. You'll see that a lot in Unreal 4 games. But it seems to be mostly over this texture. Like if I go up here, because this cart does not have a texture. If we look at the same thing, let's go somewhere relatively lit. Okay. Like the ghosting just doesn't happen. So I don't know if it's something with temporal reconstruction, like the temporal data from the floor, why it's flickering like this, but it's causing this weird ghosty effect, and I personally am not a fan of it. So we're gonna go inside here for a second, because this is probably the one room that just cemented it and made me go, ugh. Let me go just game for a second so you can take in the whole thing. I remember walking in here the first time I played this game, and I saw this and I went, what is going on? Because I'm honestly not sure. I'm not sure what's causing this, and this is the one thing that I would love to see get fixed. I don't know if it's actually going to get fixed, because I'm not a game designer. I'm not even sure what's causing this issue. But the shadows are moving like they're like water or something. It almost feels like they have water caustics on them. Or they're supposed to be reflecting water. Like if it was reflecting water that was moving gently, I'd expect them to look kind of like that, like reflection wise. You'd see some sort of weird artifact, like, but it's not. And it kind of confuses me. And I hope that when the patch comes and I revisit these games, because I'm going to, because I love 2 out of 3 of these, that the game looks better. I really hope. I really hope that this game shines because of they want to fix some of the blemishes up. And some of the things they couldn't do on last gen consoles. That's ultimately what we want, right? We want, when we get these cool patches, we want maybe some new features, but we don't always get them. These patches have been kind of a mixed bag for the most part. Like I said, I already feel like the resolution bounds on the One X version are already great. The Series S is going to be the console that gets the biggest boost from this, I feel. If Capcom, I don't want to be like Capcom was smart. Maybe Capcom will have Resident Evil 2 and 3 come to Game Pass or something when the patch goes live. That would be great for Series S owners to try these games out. Because honestly, I still love this game. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and I want nothing more than to just, play these games in the best possible quality.
Okay. I wonder where the G-Virus is.
This room doesn't have that weird shadow issue. And that's what I want to point out, is that the game has rooms. Most of the game is like this. Moody, atmospheric, fantastic shadow work, weird set piecey kind of things. But that one hall just rubs me the wrong way. So I thank you for coming with me on this weird and probably slightly rambly journey through the issues I have with Resident Evil 2. Oh, one thing before I leave, I just want to point out that the load times on this are not a problem. Let's just quit to main menu quick. They're so fast. I don't know how they are on I'm not gonna time it, but let's load a different game. Let's load this one. So it's like 10%, and now it's 90%, and it's done. I want to also point out that this game is not installed in the internal SSD. I have a Samsung external T5. Yes, T5 portable SSD that I use for all my Xbox One and non-S and X optimized games to keep space on the internal storage for games that require it. And that's going to be probably the biggest downside to these games getting a patch, because they already run pretty fast. Like, unless we start seeing instant load times on these, which could be possible, we do have the technology. You saw how fast it is. If you set up the game to do it, it probably could. I really have to give Capcom credit. These games already ran amazing. I don't have a copy of 8 here for Xbox yet. It is coming. I ended up ordering it from Europe because I got a very good deal on it. And I definitely will want to take a look at it too. But when these patches go live and we can take a look at these games, I am going to do it. I definitely feel like Resident Evil 2 will benefit the most from some of the fixes that happened in Resident Evil 3. Like, some of that shadowing glitch was definitely fixed in Resident Evil 3, but never got fixed in Resident Evil 2. Resident Evil 7, for the most part, is a good experience, as is. Any platform you can play it on. But again, I think the Series S will very much benefit the most from all 3 of these games getting the S and X stamp of approval. But that's it for me. Until next time. Matane.